You check your phone, nothing. A few minutes later, you check again. Still nothing. No messages, no notifications, no one reaching out. At first, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but the longer your phone stays silent, the louder your thoughts become. Did I do something wrong? Are they losing interest? Am I always the one keeping this friendship alive? It's a feeling almost everyone has experienced. Watching other people laugh together, seeing group chats full of activity, while your own phone stays painfully quiet. And eventually, one question starts echoing in your mind. Why does nobody ever text me first? Here's what makes this feeling so powerful. Your phone isn't actually telling you anything. It isn't saying people don't like you. It isn't saying you've been forgotten. It isn't saying your friendships are falling apart. It's simply silent. But the human brain doesn't like silence. It doesn't like unanswered questions. When there's a gap in the story, your mind naturally tries to fill it. And unfortunately, it rarely fills that gap with something positive. Instead, thoughts begin to appear. Maybe they're getting tired of me. Maybe I'm always the one making the effort. Maybe they only reply because they feel they have to. The longer the silence lasts, the more convincing those thoughts become. Even though none of them came from the other person, they came from your own mind trying to explain something it simply doesn't understand. But here's the part most people never realize. Your brain isn't trying to tell you the truth, it's trying to find an answer. Human beings are uncomfortable with uncertainty. We don't like unanswered questions. When something doesn't make sense, our minds naturally begin filling in the missing pieces. Imagine you wave at someone across the street and they don't wave back. Instantly, dozens of explanations become possible. Maybe they ignored you. Maybe they're annoyed with you. Maybe they simply don't want to talk anymore, but there's another possibility. Maybe they never even saw you. The problem is that our brains rarely choose the most neutral explanation first. They'll often choose the one that hurts the most. Exactly the same thing happens when your phone stays silent. You don't actually know why nobody has messaged, but your brain hates leaving that question unanswered. So it quietly creates an explanation, and after a while, it starts believing its own story. Once your brain has created a story, it starts looking for evidence to support it. Suddenly, little things begin to feel important. They replied a bit later than usual. They used fewer emojis. The conversation ended more quickly. None of these things prove that something is wrong. But when your mind already believes a story, everything starts to fit that story. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. Once we believe something, we naturally notice information that supports it while ignoring the information that doesn't. Before long, you've convinced yourself that someone is drifting away, even though they've never actually said or done anything to suggest it. Your brain isn't lying to you on purpose. It's simply trying to make sense of uncertainty using incomplete information. So, why doesn't anyone text first? The answer is probably much simpler than you think. Most people aren't deliberately ignoring you. They're simply living their own lives. They're working, studying, spending time with family, watching a film, cooking dinner, or maybe they're sitting on their sofa thinking, I should message them, before getting distracted by something else. The truth is, everyone is the main character in their own life. They're usually thinking about their own problems, their own deadlines, their own relationships, not because they don't care about you, but because they're human. In fact, there's a good chance someone else is sitting at home right now, looking at their phone, wondering exactly the same thing about you. They think you never text first, while you're thinking the exact same thing about them. There's another reason this happens, and it catches far more people than you might think. It's because most friendships don't fail through conflict. They fade through silence. Imagine two friends. One is waiting for the other to send the first message. The other is doing exactly the same thing. Neither person is angry. Neither person has stopped caring. They're both simply waiting. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. Eventually, both people quietly convince themselves that the other person must have lost interest. But in reality, both were hoping for exactly the same thing. One simple message. It's a reminder that silence doesn't always mean someone doesn't care. Sometimes, it just means two people are making the same mistake. There's something else that quietly makes this feeling even worse. Social media. Every single day, you're shown photos of people laughing together, going on holiday, celebrating birthdays, eating out, spending time with friends. After a while, it starts to look like everyone else has an amazing social life. Everyone else seems to have group chats that never stop, friends who message them every day, plans every weekend. But that's only because you're comparing your everyday life to everyone else's highlight reel. Nobody posts screenshots of the messages they never received. Nobody uploads photos of the plans that got canceled. Nobody shares the evenings they spent sitting alone wondering why nobody reached out. Those moments exist. You just never get to see them, so your brain starts believing you're the only one who feels forgotten. When in reality, millions of people are quietly asking themselves exactly the same question. So here's a question that might change the way you think about all of this. How many people have you not texted recently? Not because you don't like them, not because you've stopped caring, but simply because life got in the way. Maybe work became stressful, maybe you got distracted, maybe you assumed you'd message them tomorrow, and tomorrow became next week. We've all done it. Yet when somebody else doesn't message us, we rarely give them those same excuses. Instead, we assume it must mean something about us, that we're not interesting enough, that we're being forgotten, that the friendship isn't as important as we thought. But if your own silence doesn't always mean you don't care, then maybe theirs doesn't either. Sometimes the kindest explanation is also the most realistic one. The people who seem the most confident in their friendships usually have one thing in common. They don't keep score. They don't count who sent the last message. They don't keep a mental list of who reached out first. Instead, they look at the bigger picture. They ask themselves, is this person there for me when it really matters? Do I enjoy spending time with them? Do they make my life better when we're together? Those questions tell you far more about a friendship than who happened to start the last conversation. Healthy friendships aren't built on perfect balance. Sometimes one person puts in more effort. Sometimes life changes and the roles reverse. Over months and years, that effort naturally balances itself out. Looking at a single unanswered message is like judging an entire film after watching one scene. It simply doesn't tell you the full story. So, what should you do the next time your phone stays silent? First, resist the urge to invent a story. A lack of messages isn't proof that someone doesn't care. It's simply a lack of information. Second, if someone matters to you, don't be afraid to reach out first. Sending the first message doesn't make you needy. It doesn't make you desperate. It simply makes you the person who decided to keep the friendship moving. And finally, stop measuring your worth by the attention you receive on a screen. The strongest friendships are built through shared experiences, honest conversations, and being there when it truly matters, not by who happened to send the last text. The next time you unlock your phone and there aren't any new messages waiting for you, don't let your mind immediately jump to the worst possible conclusion. Remember, silence isn't evidence, it's simply silence. The stories we tell ourselves are often far more painful than reality itself. And the truth is, most people are far too busy worrying about their own lives to spend much time thinking negatively about yours. So instead of waiting for your phone to decide how you feel about yourself, decide it for yourself. Send the message, make the plans, reach out to the people who matter, because confidence isn't waiting for someone else to make the first move. Confidence is knowing that your value has never depended on who texted first. And perhaps the most important lesson of all, your worth has never been measured by the number of notifications on your screen. If you enjoyed this video and want to understand more about how the mind really works, consider subscribing to Human Theory. New videos every week exploring the psychology behind everyday life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.